when it comes to the global fallout that we are looking at, the main reason has been all about oil. You know, global oil supplies, and when it comes to the exports that have now been heavily impacted. Now, Donald Trump, in his latest briefing, seems to be hinting at a possible ending of the war soon. However, his statement has been vague and he hasn't given a timeline for it. But, you know, Srinjoy, Brent crude seems to have now slipped below $90. Now, oil has now plunged from an all-time high of 119, and crude is now retreating, as it seems that there are still hopes based on what President Trump has now said, that the war may end soon and the routes that have been blocked in the Middle East may open. Srinjoy?
Yes, the whole point is we don't know what is going to happen, because it's easier to start a war than to end it. And we've seen this again and again with, let's say, the Ukrainians and the Russians. The Russians invaded and they thought it would be over in 4 or 5 days. It must be said that everyone thought, many people thought, the war would be over in 4 days. It's been 4 years. Similarly, this one, it's already been quite a few days, over 10 days, and the fighting is still fierce, still intense. And as expected, oil prices are shooting up. Now, President Trump says the war will be over soon. Everyone wants the war to be over soon. India, everyone in India will be so happy if the war ends, because it means petrol prices will come down. It means that 9 million Indians in the area will be safe. It means that remittances will come through. It means a lot of things. So we don't know how this will turn out. But surely if President Trump says that the war is going to end soon, then he knows more than many other people. And if that is so, and if the war does end soon, it benefits everybody.
Absolutely, because President's comments have prompted a sell-off in the energy market, sending the prices of Brent crude and West Texas Intermediate back to below $90 per barrel. However, as far as this hint is now concerned, it seems to be a bit vague, because he's not set a timeline. Because when it comes to President Trump, he's been giving multiple statements. One side, he's been saying that they are ready for a prolonged war, and almost for a month or even beyond that it could last. However, he's now been saying that militarily, most of the objectives of the U.S. has been achieved.
No Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar, they have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you know, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further, and we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. You know, these were ships, these were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on the ships.
Well, Srinjoy, again, there is no telling with President Trump. And as far as when it comes to both U.S. and Israel have joined this war against Iran, their objective seems to be, however, completely different.
First of all, regime change. So far, all the top leaders have been killed, but actually speaking, there hasn't been regime change. Initially, on that first day, there were really 3 objectives. Regime change, the most major one, the destruction of the nuclear facilities, which much of it had already been done, the destruction of the missile batteries, the launchers, the factories, and so on. Now, missiles, as he says now, 80% done. Nuclear, almost done. Regime change, nowhere in sight, though the top leadership has been killed. He speaks about successes against the Navy, certainly. He speaks about successes in the Air Force. Oh, yes. But there's no regime change. And that was what was initially talked about. But if he wants the war to end soon, if he thinks the war will end soon, well, he knows. And the earlier that ends, the better it will be for India, for Indian citizens, and all those people.
But
in the
Shinjai,
Gulf.
could that be a possibility? Because if the US backs out, because earlier there were also reports of possible boots on the ground. However, it was said that Donald Trump hasn't made a final decision on that. But if the US backs out, having achieved its military objective, will Israel still continue to attack Iran?
After a point, that will be more difficult. Because let's not forget that the power of America, the might of America is actually exceptional. And just imagine two carrier battle groups, the Gerald Ford, the Abraham Lincoln, plus the Air Force, the American US Air Force. So all of that is enormous amounts of power.
Yes.
Do you think the Israelis would have been able to sink all these ships,
Yes,
warships of the Iranian Navy?
So as far as when it comes to the possibility of a sustained, prolonged war, however, Donald Trump seems to be hinting that it may end soon and already, looking hopeful. Asian markets have now been reacting in a positive way. Let's get that breaking for our viewers right now. What we are learning that the Asian market seems to be rebounding, where it seems that the price of the oil per barrel seems to have come down when Donald Trump's signal came in of the war that is likely to come to an end. However, this has been a vague statement, Hina, but it seems that the Asian markets, however, are still hopeful.
Well, absolutely, because, after at least 11 days, some kind of breather has come in that maybe we might be close to seeing, the end of this war soon. And that's the reason why what we are witnessing right now is a rally in the Asian markets. Japan's Nikkei is finally seeing some green. South Korea's Kospi is also looking good after the kind of crash we saw in the last couple of trading sessions. And all of this is happening because of the statements that have come from U.S. President Donald Trump, and overnight he declared that a Middle East war could be over soon. Now, this is, a new statement, an important one, because earlier Trump had suggested that the war could go on at least for 4 to 5 weeks. So from 4 to 5 weeks, if he's saying that it could end soon, that has come in a bit of a relief for investors. Now, why? Because the oil prices have fallen sharply. Yesterday, while we were talking about oil crossing $100 per barrel, first time since 2022, now we have seen a sharp drop in the oil prices, and that is the reason why the Asian markets are looking strong. Rupee has, in fact, also opened strongly against the dollar.
Yes, we're just going to put out the figures there because you just mentioned the rupee. So let's get that another breaking